On this episode of Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, I'm going to talk about the delivery process when it comes to delivering your financial plan to a new client.
Running a successful fee-based financial planning business is tough, and escaping the shackles of a commission-based financial planning practice is terrifying. When all you want to do is learn from those who know, learn from financial planners who are there on the front lines doing it each and every day. What if you could just open their kimono and take a look inside to learn what works and what doesn't? Now there's a place where the secrets to running a fee-based financial planning business are revealed to those who believe. Fee-based financial planning mastery. Ease your mind.
Hi everyone, it's Scott Plaskett here, and thanks for joining me. In this podcast, you will learn what's working and what's not in the world of fee-based financial planning. In each episode, I'm going to open my kimono and let you take an insider's look at what's working and what's not in my practice to help you take your business to the next level. I've been a fee-based certified financial planner since the early 90s, so believe me, I know the challenges you're facing. So get ready to learn not from a teacher, coach, or guru, but from a colleague who's on the front lines just like you. And I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my email internet newsletter to get the most up-to-date tips on how to build and grow your fee-based financial planning practice by going to feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com. Since the last episode I put out, it's been there's been some interesting experiences that I've gone through. And so I thought I'd just give you an update on what's going on with me. You know, over the holiday break, I had probably the most memorable Christmas holiday break in my past. We'll never forget this one for sure. I mean, it was really interesting. We have a cottage that we go to just north of Montreal in Quebec, and that's where we spend our Christmas holiday break. Anyways, when we got there, leading up to that point, there was a massive snowstorm that hit the area and actually took the power out quite a bit. And when the power went out, obviously it's, in cottage country at minus 17, it means it's a different experience. Anyways, the power had been out for 3 days. We'd had the heat and the water on in advance of that. So of course everything was sort of solid and cold. We arrived and it was, there was probably 4 feet of snow on the ground. Walked in, there was no power. So my wife, Kathy, she went out with the kids and went to get some food to bring back. And I said, look, I'm going to just shovel out the stairwell so we can, or the entrance from the driveway to the back door. I'm going to shovel that out. There was 4 feet of snow. I figured I needed to get that done immediately because if the snow got any heavier, it would be a real challenge to do. So I got that done and they went off and did that. Got the fires going. We've got a fire in the place. And, it basically took the temperature in the cottage from minus 17 degrees Celsius up to about 5 degrees Celsius. So by no means was it comfortable. It was sort of comfortable at best, but we have, funny pictures of my wife cooking shrimp rice pilaf over a Coleman camp stove with her hat, mitts, jacket, snow pants, the kids, everything. We're basically like we're getting ready to go skiing, and here we are sitting in our kitchen. So that was really quite interesting. It lasted. The power was out for 2 days, almost 2 days. So we were, I would call it winter camping at the beginning of our break. And then New Year's Eve, the power came on, which was great. So it came on around 8:30. First thing you do when the power's been off for a while I went and I did what everybody would do, and I flushed the toilet because we needed to do so. Anyways, flushed it, but the problem was I didn't hear any water coming back in and realized, oh my gosh, the water lines are still frozen. Took a look, pulled the tank off the back of the toilet, and sure enough, it was just frozen solid. So that was a little frustrating. But a couple hours later, about 11 o'clock on Christmas Eve, I heard a little click, and suddenly the tap started to run. So that was a great Christmas present or New Year's Eve present to us when it was nice to be warm at that point, but it was even nicer to have the water flowing. So that was the start of our break. The funny thing was at the end of our break, because of all the snow that had fallen, and literally at the end of the break, there was about 5 feet of snow on the ground. When we were just getting ready to pack the car up, I was just getting ready to grab the kids and say, okay, everybody hop in the car. We're going to be driving out. A neighboring friend came over and said, you're not going anywhere. And I said, why? What's up? And she said, well, there's a tree down over your cottage road. So what did I have to do? Yeah, I had to basically cut that tree up before we could get out. So, the break for me started with an interesting experience, ended with another interesting experience. So, but in between, it was just wonderful. So it was a really great time off. I hope everybody else had a wonderful time off, and it really gave a chance to recharge the batteries for starting the 2013 year off with a bang. And in doing so, that's exactly what we did. So I opened the doors to the first session of the Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery Academy. And so that started at the beginning of the year. And it's been an amazing experience. Students have come from all over the world. We've got a handful of, a bunch of students from Canada, a whole handful from the US, from Australia, from the UK. And that's just, sort of scratching the surface on where people are coming in from. So, or not dialing or coming in from, because it's all online. But anyways, they're calling in from for the calls. And it's just, they're, great experiences. And the communications I've had with some of the students so far, people are really diving into the content and really finding it value. So that's been really rewarding on my part. I'm really happy to be part of that learning that's going on, and really privileged to be a part of it. So that was pretty cool at the beginning of the year. The other thing is hockey. I'm a hockey player. Played as a kid, stopped for a while, and then got back into it as an adult. So I'm in a men's league that is really one of the highlights of my week. And the other thing I'm really happy about is the NHL lockout is over. So yay! I get to watch some of my hockey games again. So that's pretty cool. We also hired a new marketing assistant in our office. So starting out this year, we've got a new person on the team. It's early stages, but all signals are pointing to definitely looking like they're moving in the right direction. And as a result of this, I really plan to really turn up the marketing on our side and initiate some really cool marketing campaigns that I've been sort of toying with that I'll keep you posted on. And I hope that I'll be able to get back to you with a lot of the stats on how things are going with a lot of that, because we're going to be doing a lot of testing and tweaking on that. So I'll keep you up to speed on how that's going as time goes on. It's also ski season here. So definitely underway. My ski season ski history is I'm a bit of a ski racer living in Ontario. We don't have the highest vertical or altitude for some great ski hills. So in order to keep it interesting, I got involved in some racing. Now my daughters are racing as well this year, and my eldest daughter is actually on a travel ski team. So my racing career is taking a bit of a back seat right now to hers, but it's all good. It's so much fun to get out there and to see all these, to see the kids going to different ski hills and just racing and getting into the racing scene. So that's kind of fun. My kids' dance group, I don't know if many of you have heard me talk about my kids dancing in the past. They're competitive dancers, but their dance group this year again is going to be performing the halftime show for the Harlem Globetrotters. And we've posted online a couple of the previous times they've done that, and it's really impressive. I feel privileged to sort of see these kids. There's, in the group that they're for this particular show, it's called a super group. And there's about 100 kids that are all taking part in this, and they're all in the competitive stream. It's kind of like, select hockey or AAA hockey. So, but for dance, and it's pretty impressive to see what they can do. So if you ever want to see, I'll link to perhaps last year's or last couple of halftime shows that we've got online. You can take a look at those videos if you want. And then when the next one, I'll be videotaping it for sure, and I'll just post it on there and you can take a look at it. So it's pretty impressive. But I tell you, whenever I go to the Harlem Globetrotters, I'm still rooting for the Generals. I think they're going to win it this year, but we'll have to wait and see. And that's pretty much it for my update for now. There's always lots going on in my neck of the woods, and I hope you're taking advantage of all that life has to offer for you. Life moves pretty fast, and if you don't stop and look around once in a while, you'll miss it. Now, do you know where that movie quote came from? If you do, put your answer in the comment section. I'd love to see if the generation that's listening to this podcast knows where that came from. So if you have a thought on that, just put a comment in the show notes and see if you're right. So anyways, that's a bit of an update on where things are at for me and what I'm up to right now. As I said, there's always lots going on here, so I could probably do a whole show on all the things that are going on in my neck of the woods, but that's just some of the highlights for now. So let's now get on to the feature segment.
And now for our feature segment.
So I want to talk today about fee-based financial planning delivery secrets. Okay, so What I want to talk about is the delivery of your services. And there's 3 stages that all fee-based financial planners must go through with their financial planning process: a before stage, a during stage, and an after stage. Now, it's a simple concept that we all kind of get conceptually, and it was actually Dean Jackson who I'll credit to this, because it was him who sort of just simplified it in that way first, and that's where I sort of got the perspective on that. So, as a fee-based financial planner, what happens in the before stage, okay? And I'm not going to talk too much about this, but this is where you educate, build rapport, and introduce your productized, and I put quotes around that, productized financial planning services. It's everything that happens up until the point that a prospective client says to you, yes, I'd like to proceed with your financial planning services, and here's my check or credit card or whatever for the initial fee. Now, I'm not going to spend, time in this episode on the before side of things, because that we're going to probably address in a different episode. And I do appreciate that there's a lot that goes into the before part of the business. And we've talked a little bit about that in previous episodes. And it's, the before is all about the marketing side and getting your information out there and getting people to raise their hand to say, hey, I'm interested in what you're talking about. But now what I want to talk about the during side. So this is the point at which, this is what happens from the point at which a client signs the letter of engagement for your program and pays you the first of 2 financial planning fee installments. So here's the high level process that I would recommend everybody consider going through or sort of walk through. So just consider this in your mind. This is pretty much where I want to start. This is what happens, where, as I say, it's the point at which somebody signs the letter of engagement and says, I would like to engage your services. So we're going to break it into steps. So step 1 is, in this meeting, you're going to review the letter of engagement together. Now, remember I talked about the letter of engagement. It's sort of the starting point of all of this. Now, this is something that every single client of ours must sign. If you're going to work with us, you need to sign a letter of engagement, because this is where the letter of engagement, provides you with all the details that we've talked about, but it puts it in writing. And so I'll either provide the clients with a copy right then and there. If I'm in the office and I have access to a copier, then they'll get a copy of that they can take with them. Or if I'm at their home, for example, which I try not to do very much of, I try not to do house calls, so to speak, but if I am at their home, or if I'm not at a place where a copier isn't readily available, I'll simply just take a picture of the document with my iPhone and email it to them so that they have an immediate signed copy. Now, there's also a bit of psychology working here when it comes to the letter of engagement, because it's important to use this letter of engagement to your benefit, to sort of really make people realize that this is a serious process. Generally, when people are signing a document like this, it makes them realize that it's not just, joking around. This is more of a serious thing, a serious relationship that they're starting. So it's important that you review the document entirely, okay? So reviewing the documents in their entirety, signing them with a pen, taking a copy and providing the client with a copy of it right then and there really locks in their decision to move forward with you. Remember, it's the full disclosure and honesty that people love with this process. And this is what we want to do. We want to just take the time. So many times people don't take the time to actually go through the details. And it's those details, I don't know about you, but whenever I see a contract or something like that and there's fine print, you kind of think, God, there's something in those details I'm not aware of. But you know what? I have to go and kind of trust the person that I'm working with. Well, what I want to do is I want to enhance that trust. I want to really make that take that trust level to a new level. So what I do is I go through every word of the letter of engagement. I read every word of the letter of engagement to show them that there's never anything in the fine print that they have overlooked. I want them to realize that, listen, we're going to talk about everything that's in here. I just want you to realize that it's all here and we've already talked about it. I just want you to know that it's all in this document. Full disclosure, my friends, full disclosure. This is the importance of this approach. You build so much trust and honesty when you do take a full disclosure approach, because people realize you're not hiding anything. You're actually going out of your way to disclose everything. I've never had a client call me back later and say, I was thinking about it and I've decided that I just, now's not the right time. I don't want to proceed. The reason is that I never pressured them in the first place. I actually kind of pushed them away a little bit. I find that if you push people away a little bit at the right time, they actually, when they really want it, they come back even stronger. And, by pushing them away and saying, listen, no, I'm not just going to make this easy. We're going to spend the time to go through reviewing the document. So, by reviewing everything with them, I get them really comfortable with the whole idea of what they're moving forward with. And as a result, no refunds. So that's an important point. Just slow it down at the beginning and take the time to use that letter of engagement document, which in most cases is kind of a frustrating experience for people, because I just see planners oftentimes when it comes time to the paperwork, they try to rush through it. They do everything and put all the, they pre-fill it out, which is important, but then they just don't go through the documentation with clients. Clients actually appreciate it when you go through it with them, especially the letter of engagement, because it engages them in the financial planning process. Now, step 2 is then immediately you will then book the next plan presentation meeting. I can't tell you how critical this step is. Yeah, if you take anything from this episode, it's the importance of booking your next meeting right then and there at this stage of the planning process. For some reason, and I think you can all relate to this, or you've had an experience in some way, shape, or form, but I'm going to use the legal industry, and I'm not going to beat up on the legal industry. But my experience, my negative experiences have been in the legal world. For some reason, the legal industry just seems to be the worst, in my experience, for missing this critical step, which is booking the next meeting right then and there. If you don't book your next plan presentation meeting right then and there, I can pretty much guarantee that the whole financial planning process will take twice, maybe 3 times as long. We need to set ourselves up for success here. And if we leave it up to ourselves to call when the plan is ready, I've heard people say, well, listen, okay, we're going to get right to it. We're going to, I'll give you a call when we're ready to go through the first draft of the plan. If you leave it in that sort of fashion, you'll never do it efficiently. The only thing that will motivate you, if you follow the call when it's done approach, is guilt. You'll begin to feel guilty that it's taking so long. You'll have this pressure put on you. Well, I just say, listen, get rid of that pressure. Book the next presentation meeting. Book it right then and there, so people now have something they're working forward to, and then it instantly puts that plan into your workflow process. So listen, I've got a deadline coming up, and at the beginning of my week, when I plan out my week, I'm going to make sure that plan is attended to, because I've got a meeting that it's coming up to. For whatever reason, when you book the meeting, you will always show up to that meeting with something, with your meeting prepared for. Lawyers never seem to book the next meeting to review whatever they're wanting to do with you. And the whole process just takes weeks and weeks, and sometimes months and months. I remember I had somebody, a lawyer that I was referred to, and we wanted him to sort of redo our wills. And so we said, okay, here's all the information. We sat down and had really quite a lengthy meeting about the wills. And then he said, okay, great, I'll give you a call when it's time to come in and review them. Honestly, we'll put it this way. We ended up going to another lawyer to get our wills done, because that lawyer, even when we called him to say, hey, we're just checking in on where things are at, he just never got back to us. It was like the last thing on his mind. And that really wasn't a good indication that, we were important to that lawyer. So, I oftentimes feel that with some lawyers that I've worked with in the past, that their order of doing things was based on whoever was screaming at them the loudest. And that's just not a great way to live your life, and it's not a great way to do business. So booking this meeting engages not only yourself and your staff, but it engages everyone in the process. It engages your client. It illustrates that not only are you, going to do what you say, but that if the client has information that they still need to get you, they realize that they need to get it to you as quickly as possible, because there's a meeting booked, and they understand that you have a need to work on their information, and you can't provide them with the best plan if you don't have all the information. So they recognize that, and they'll get the information back to you. And as a bit of a safety net, and I'd recommend this strongly, I'd also recommend that you build into your back office system a trigger. Okay, and I've talked about triggers in the past, but a trigger that fires when someone hits the stage of having made a decision to move forward with your services, but who's stuck at that stage for longer than 7 days. In other words, what happens is the way we track our plans are through what our system has opportunities, and we use Salesforce.com. Now, the opportunity in there is basically we're working on the opportunity to work on the financial plan for a client, and we've then put together triggers through all the different stages that says, listen, the system monitors all of the opportunities that we're working on, and it monitors all the financial plans we're working on. And the system says, listen, if you've got a plan that indicates that they're a client, and it indicates that you're you are basically sitting at the stage where they said, yes, I want to move forward with it, but you haven't booked your next meeting, then our system watches it for 7 days. And if 7 days passes, then it sends a note out saying, hey, you need to call this client and book this meeting. So the trigger is that they haven't booked their planned presentation meeting, and this is easy to build into your back office system. So you don't have to worry about, things falling through the cracks and things, basically not getting done. So what I basically say is when you're mapping out your back office workflows, put these safety nets in place and ask yourself a question with every stage. If I stall at any point in time, what is the trigger that's going to actually bring this to my attention so that we can, uninstall it, if that's even a word, but you know what I mean? Basically, if we can get things moving again. And so this is one of the triggers that we've put in place, is to say that if you haven't booked that next meeting, if the client says, look, I can't book it right now, I'll get back to you. Well, I don't want that to fall through the cracks. So we've just simply put a trigger in place that says if it's been like this for too long, then notify me, and then we just we call the client and say, hey, we haven't heard back from you, so we want to make sure we get this booked. So that's step 2, is booking that planned presentation meeting as soon as you can. So they've signed the letter of engagement with you, everything's great, you've got all the documentation. Now what you need to do is book the next meeting so that everybody's got something to look forward to. Now the third step is just sort of envision this: you're in the meeting, everything's done, you've booked the next planned presentation meeting, and now they leave. So what's the next step? Next step is step 3, where you now send out what I call a new client welcome kit. Now, new client welcome kit, imagine how you would feel if shortly after you hired a professional, you got a care package in the mail saying, welcome to the club. I'm so pleased to be working with you. Here are some items that I think you'll find valuable. I mean, how many professionals do this? And one thing that I like to do is make sure that the package that they're getting is kind of lumpy, that's got some things in it that just, it intrigues them, because when they get it, it's a weird sized envelope, could be a padded envelope, could be FedExed, could be UPS, whatever. And it's something that just says, well, I got to open this. There could be a book inside there. So, basically, not very many people do this. And I can't tell you the response that we get, when they become a client, and then all of a sudden, a couple days later, they get this package in the mail that sort of outlines a lot of information. And it gives us a chance to touch that client again before we get together for the first meeting. Now, the thing is, not many professionals do it, but the ones who do, they get noticed. It's building all of these nice little touch points into your systems that will create a client base of raving fans for you. Think about it this way. There's a lot of good emotion when you're in the letter of engagement meeting. There's a lot of positive experience, positive emotion happening at that point. Your client's motivated, they're excited about working with you, and you're excited about working with them, and everybody's really quite happy about it. And you want to sort of encourage that and keep that momentum going. So how do you keep the energy alive? Well, if you think that all about it, then you want to deliver on your next planned presentation meeting. If you think that's when it's going to happen, you're kind of missing the point. That's what most people do. They basically say they forget about you from the time between you leave the office and then you come in for your next meeting. But I want to touch people during that time. So how do you do something above and beyond? Well, it's simple. You build it into your systems. You can't basically rely on memory for something like this. You've got to map out your process and build it into your systems and just say, is there something I can do between these 2 points that will sort of add some value to the client? Is there a video I can put together that might explain something to a client that they maybe have a question of? Maybe if they've, just as an example, if they've implemented an investment solution with you, is there an email you can send out after the fact that's, again, built into your system that explains to them how they perhaps would gain online access to their statements. And so maybe it walks them through setting up that online process or something like that. So, are there things you can do to automatically trigger a task to send out, something? Well, our system automatically triggers the task to send out a new client welcome kit once the status of the prospect becomes a client. So, as soon as that happens, boom, a trigger gets fired, and it basically puts a task on somebody's task list to say you need to send this client out a new client welcome kit. Now, imagine the conversation that your client has with their spouse the day the package, and I try to put it into a big box or something like that, the day that package arrives. Well, odds are pretty good. And, it wouldn't be like this for a single individual, but I think the impact is pretty similar as well. But odds are pretty good that both spouses are not at home together when the package arrives. Odds are also pretty good that one spouse will open it before the other one sees it. This is kind of like Christmas twice, because now you've got 2 times to give that client a positive experience. Now, the first spouse, they open it and they get a big smile on their face. They get a sense of confidence that, they're working with a quality firm, and they feel good about it. It just reinforces their decision to work with you. Then when the other spouse comes in, home for the day, the first spouse gets to either say to them, look at what our new financial planner just sent us, or, they basically get to gloat a little bit. Maybe it was their idea to come and see you in the first place, so it just gives them some more ammunition to go back and say, hey, listen, I'm so happy we met with this guy or girl or whatever, but look at it, we just got this nice package in the mail. Do you think that both spouses at this point are more committed to the relationship? Absolutely. Do you think that they're both looking at each other with the look of, we did the right thing in meeting with this firm, and I'm so happy that we did? Bottom line is that this small step goes a long way with the relationship. And, I have clients emailing me back after this time say, hey, thanks for the stuff that you sent me. Thanks for this. I really appreciate it. And you can just keep on, year after year coming up with unique and new ideas of things to put into this package. And it really becomes kind of a fun experience in sort of building your business. But sending out that new client welcome kit and automating that process into your workflow is an important point. So, think about that when you're designing your back office system. Now, the next step is to get the first draft of the plan written as soon as possible. Again, I've automated this whole process to put a task on our system for a staff member to get the initial draft of the plan, put into the system. So I want all the data, I want all that information thrown into the system so that we can very quickly determine, are we missing anything? So, what this does is it ensures that we have all the required data to be able to complete our end of the bargain, to be able to provide our clients with their first, what I call meaningful draft of their financial plan. If something's missing, we know about it very, very quickly, so we can quickly email the client with a list of items we still require. If there was some information at the second meeting that they came in, and we identified some areas that or things that they needed to get to us, generally what we'll do is after that meeting, we'll send them in a quick summary saying, listen, after the meeting, just wanted to give you the summary saying here are the items that we're missing. If you can get them to us before the next plan presentation meeting, because we want to make sure that information is included in your plan. So definitely get the plan first draft written as soon as possible, so you can just review it and make sure that nothing's missing and that you've got everything that you need. The next step is to prepare all the deliverables for the plan presentation meeting. So at this point, you should have a completed, what I call a base plan. That's the foundation plan, the version of the plan that really illustrates exactly what the client is doing right now without any changes. It's the version of the plan that answers the question, if I do nothing different, so this is the client speaking, if I do nothing different than what I'm doing right now, what am I on track for? That's an interesting thing to know, because the clients know what they're doing right now, and maybe they're not doing anything. Maybe they're, but that's something that you can say, listen, based on what you're doing today, which is either something or nothing or whatever, and based on the decisions you made up to now, this is what you're on track for. Now, this is, this is where the planning comes in, because now what you're able to do as a planner, you then take that base plan and say, okay, what would I do? What would I recommend for this particular client? What changes would I make? What are the adjustments that I would recommend that they put in place? And then you create a version of the plan, which is I call the proposed plan, which then has all those changes built into it. Maybe there's some other insurance that they need. Maybe there's an investment solution which is going to rebalance their portfolio and ideally give them a higher probability of a higher rate of return or a more consistent rate of return or something like that. So in essence, what you're doing is you're saying, look, if you do nothing, this is what you're on track for. But if you do something and you make some of these adjustments and you follow some of the recommendations, then I'm just going to map out for you what that means for you and what that puts you on track for. And this really is where the planning comes in. And this is sort of of how the conversation then can go when you are presenting to the client. You're able to go through and say, okay, this is doing nothing, this is doing something, here's the difference that it means to you. So make a new version of the plan with the adjustments or recommendations, and that way you'll be able to show the direct comparison between doing nothing and following your advice. It just reinforces the importance of your advice, and it shows that, listen, my advice is here to help you get closer to your goals. They're not my goals, they're your goals. And if this is what your goal is, then this is the course of action that I feel is the most appropriate for you to move forward with, and I can prove it to you. So consider, incorporating that into your plan presentation a little bit. Then at that point, so you've prepared all the information for the meeting, and you've prepared all the information. You sat down with them, and now you haven't sat down with them yet, because now you're getting ready to go into your meeting. Then you sit down during your plan presentation meeting, and you just start doing the comparison. You say, listen, this is where you're at when you came in to see me. These are some of the recommendations that I have for you, and here's why I would recommend you move forward with that. Then at that point, what you're able to do is you can start booking implementation meetings. Okay, you can start booking meetings to where you can take a deep dive into some of the implementation, because once you've got that first draft, you're going to have a sense of what the client is, kind of comfortable moving forward with. And I say to clients all the time, look, I'm going to make sure you're aware of every option that's available to you. Not because I think you need to implement every option, but it's because I think you need to have the right to say no to as many options as possible. I don't believe that every option is appropriate, but I think they need to be aware of what their options are. The one thing I don't want clients to have is, I don't want them to come across a strategy or something outside of what we've presented to them, and then come back to us and say, well, why haven't we talked about this? I want to know that we've talked about everything that I can think of. I want to know we've talked about it, so that I know that they've had the right to say no. And we find that, there's a lot of things that people will say no to. And there's even things that I'll say, listen, I'm going to expose you to something here. Expose them to it, go through the details. But at the end of it, I say, listen, and this is something I don't think that is appropriate for you right now. I don't think this is a good solution for you right now. And I do that because I kind of want to insulate them against other influences that they may have. Maybe this client is really, not comfortable with a lot of risk and whatnot. But a friend of theirs says, hey, what are you doing with all this equity in your home? You really should borrow that equity and invest it and leverage your account out. Well, maybe that's not appropriate for the client, but maybe that other friend has had a good experience with that. And they say, oh, you're crazy not to do it. Look at how much money you can make. So when a client comes back to me and says, hey, I was talking to somebody where they were suggesting I should consider this, I can say, listen, we've talked about this. And at the time, I didn't think it was the most appropriate thing for you. And that's why we didn't move forward with it. If it's something you want to revisit, then let's revisit that. But I can tell you now, my recommendation probably won't change. And it just gives them a sense that, we have talked about that, you're right. And it just insulates them from the outside influences that maybe don't know as much about what they're trying to accomplish. Because I think from the outside looking in, if people had to make an assumption, they would make the assumption that all you're trying to do is create as much wealth as possible. Well, that may be, but it may not be. And there may be different strategies, or there may be different definitions of what true wealth means to your particular client. Maybe the client's idea of true wealth is debt-free. Other clients' true wealth is high cash flow. So, you just want to be able to direct clients in that. So we go through that. We go through the plan presentation. We start identifying, the base plan, and then we start really getting clear on what are the things that the client is comfortable moving forward with. And when we start doing that, that's where the implementation meetings come in. Maybe the implementation can happen right then and there. But you know what? I think it oftentimes warrants having a second meeting, especially, in our practice, when it comes time to implementing through investment counselors or portfolio managers or whatnot. I want my clients to meet with those individuals. I want them to meet with the teams. I want them to get a sense that, we're overseeing this for you, but there's a specialist that we've hired that's actually doing the deep dive research into the securities that are going into your portfolio or whatever. Or if it's an insurance solution, maybe we've got a specialist that we turn to for things like living benefits or for estate planning or whatever. Or maybe you do it yourself, but you want to make sure you can do a deep dive on the meeting. And sort of bombarding a client with too much information during those meetings can almost be overwhelming. And so you say, let's break it into bite-sized pieces, and I prepare clients for this. I prepare them in advance. And I say, before we even engage in moving forward, I say, one of the things I want you to be aware of is the commitment that's being made here is not only a commitment on my part to work for you and to do everything I can for you, but it's a commitment on your part. And here's what I'm asking you to commit to. I'm asking you that if you decide to move forward with our services, and we both feel it's appropriate for you to do so, what I'm asking you to do is be aware of what you're committing to. And those commitments are basically meetings. And so I'll say in advance, listen, I anticipate that over the next 12 months, we're probably going to have 6 to 8 meetings because we're going to be going through your plan presentations. We're going to be going through the overview. We're going to be going through implementation discussions. We're going to be having interviews with investment firms, and we're going to be bringing in other specialists. And to do that, we need to spend time on that. And if we do everything at once, it's just going to turn into this noise. So let's break it into bite-sized pieces and move forward with things as we can. I want you to commit to that first so that they're recognizing that, this is a very well thought out approach. And it makes them, pause a little bit and reinforces that if they do decide to move forward with it, that I'm going to be asking a lot of them. It's not something where they can just hand it over to me and say, okay, just figure it out and, put it in place and do whatever you need to. And, I want clients to be somewhat more engaged. So, that's important. And then we book the implementation meetings to take those deep dives, and we book the meetings with the investment counselors. We book the meetings with the insurance specialists. We book the meetings for the refinancing of any debts, book the meetings with accountants, with executive compensation specialists. We do all of that. We book all those meetings so that, still got things to look forward to. We're keeping that momentum going. Clients love it when they get a sense that there's momentum with this, and, it just makes the experience that much better. So, following this process really sets you up for success, and it sets you apart from your competition. It really does encourage people to really see you as a different type of experience. And, when they start seeing it and they really start to, then they've got something to talk about. When everybody says, I meet with my financial guy and we talk about the investments and that's about it. You want your clients to go, well, that's interesting, because we talk about so much more than that. We talk about my kids, my goals, my hopes, my desires, my job, we talk about so much more than just the investments. We've talked about it in the past. Financial planning is not just investing. Investing is not financial planning. Investing, or an investment plan or an insurance plan or whatever, is a component of financial planning. And we all get that as fee-based financial planners, but the public doesn't. I had a phone meeting yesterday, actually, with a prospective client, somebody who was referred to me, and but they said, listen, I want to have a conversation with you on the phone first before we take the time to get together. And she said, here's my situation. I invest myself. I get some assistance from my dad. He helps me with this. And really, that's what we do. But we're recognizing my dad's getting older. And so we just recognize that maybe I should find a third party that I can turn to. And so that's what I want to talk to you about. And I said, well, that's fine. But what you're referring to basically is you're referring to your investments. But I said, we're comprehensive financial planners. So the investments are a component of your financial plan. So don't mix up the fact that if you have an investment plan, you feel that you've got a financial plan, because you don't. And she paused and she said, I've never really thought about that before, but you're right. Financial planning is different than investments. Investments are a component, but there's more to it. She said, thank you for identifying that and making me realize that there's a difference there. Now, she says, I've realized now that all I've been talking to are people who are focused on investments. I haven't really talked to a financial planner before. And I said, well, it's a good difference to understand, because it's important, because I believe that people are actually looking for financial planners, but they're only meeting investment advisors. And there aren't that many people out there who truly do financial planning, which is why I'm trying to encourage you to take your practice and migrate it over to a fee-based financial planning side, because it's the conversation that people want to be having. Now, it's a bigger conversation. Granted, it's, the investment managers and portfolio managers that I work with, they say to me on a regular basis, gosh, you know so much more about your clients than I know about them. But then they say, but you know what? The reality is I don't need to know all that information. I just need to know what they're trying to accomplish. And then I'm happy. And that's why I love that type of relationship, when you've got an investment firm you can turn to and an investment manager or portfolio manager you can turn to, because they're the ones that are going to take the time to do the deep dive into the underlying security selection and that sort of thing. But they rely on the planner to keep the whole plan on track. And that's what a client really wants is in my mind, they're really looking for that, but they just don't know that. They get mixed up and they think that the investment plan is their financial plan, and it truly isn't. So, following this process definitely sets you up for success, definitely sets you apart from the rest. Not following this process exposes you to having a client fall through the cracks, and that's a real risk. Not following this process shows lack of planning on your end, and this is not the image you want to project. I tell clients all the time, part of what you're paying me for is to keep you engaged in the planning process, to keep you moving forward, to give you that kick in the butt every so often to say, hey, you said you wanted to get this done, and maybe you needed to refinance a debt, maybe you needed to refinance a mortgage, whatever it happens to be, you haven't done it yet. So I'm here to remind you of that, and I'm going to keep track of all the things you said you wanted to do. Now, if you change your mind along the way and you say, listen, I no longer want to do that, that's fine. We'll have a conversation about that. But if you've asked me to track this for you and you've asked me to make sure you're moving forward, that's what I'm going to do for you. So don't get upset when I keep on hounding you to get certain things done. So, give this process a try. It works like a charm on the delivery side, and I highly encourage you to sort of follow that methodology. Give it a try, and just get out there and build yourself a better business.
You've been listening to Scott E. Plaskett, a certified financial planner and industry veteran in the world of fee-based financial planning. Want free resources to help you build a better fee-based financial planning firm? Visit ilovefinancialplanning.com right now to register for Scott's Inner Circle email list, where you'll get front-of-the-line updates on the latest resources that are driving profits to Scott's fee-based financial planning practice. All of the resources are pulled directly from the highly acclaimed fee-based Financial Planning Mastery Academy. Go now to ilovefinancialplanning.com. Build a better business and make more money with your fee-based financial planning practice today.